Hey there, everybody. I'd promised to walk in the woods soon-ish. So, you know, get back to some more serious stuff. Uh, so, we are down on the edge of the property, and I'm gonna turn the camera around in just a second because there's a whole bunch to look at. So, let's take a little walk. Before we really go any further, I just want to take a moment to appreciate the Michella, the partridge berry right there. Uh, this stuff is super hardy and amenable to foot traffic. We have it spreading on a number of the woodland staircases I've built, and it's in our tractor paths as well, so I'm pretty impressed with it. It's definitely something I'm looking to foster more of, and I'm thinking that this might be the year that I start doing cuttings of it in the fall, more intentionally than I have been doing in the past. And so we're down in the woods. We're on the main tractor path in behind the duck yard. The duck yard is right up there. You can see the orange coop, you can see Jelly School, and you can see the big house up there. And down here, a whole lot more Michella. Look at them go. They just love it. It's that dappled shade. It's a wonderful little ground cover. It doesn't really spread quite as aggressively as one might want for a ground cover in the woods, but between the forest stuff and the wood chips that we bring in and the handful of little runner plants that we get popping up, things are pretty good. You may be picking up on the fact that there are a number of branches in the path, and that's because we have a fresh break in this tree that happened recently. That was last week's snow and ice storm. You can see just how much force was really playing on this bad Larry. Look at that. It's just shattered. That isn't even the branch that I was hoping to get to come down. Right? It's up there. So now there are only 4 stems left on this thing. 3.5. Pan up. So 1, 2, 3, and that little half jutting out from the one to the right. I'm gonna come around and over this log real quick. The axe is in it because that's part of my work for today. But you can see over in here where I had scarred this branch, because it is the one hanging precipitously over a whole lot of things. And there was a video from Ben Falk a ways ago that talked about wolf pines and kind of aging them out of the system and doing these woundings like ring barking or just getting rid of the cambium so that the branch itself dies off, so that you're not having to deal with 4 trees coming down at once if this were to come down. And traditionally, if you were going to do it, you would scar it in this range, and that would kill it from the base up, and then you'd get drying. Ring barking is an old Scandinavian methodology that was used to kind of cure the trees while they were still growing, so they would be pretty ossified and sturdy when the harvest time came. But so this is a huge amount of tree that had come down, and time being what it is, I just have not been able to come back here and deal with this. It does look like it totally just uprooted another tree right there. This stick right in front of you It's not attached to anything. It's not really a tree. It's something that broke off of this other branch and just embedded itself in the ground. So that might be an opportunity for us to use that hole and plant something. Although keen observation would show you that this is actually right on one of the little pathways. So it will definitely have to get cleaned up. Luckily, I guess it fell on some logs that have not fully been taken over by the stuff that we've planted out in the soil pockets in between them. But let's go see what else has come down, I guess. This one's one of mine. I did that. You can tell because it's got clean edges. We had a birch come down in the storm. That one, if we come over this way, hey look, there's another one of mine. You can tell from the clean edges. I promise we are getting ready to be building stuff back here, but I'm unsure exactly when that will happen. But this birch looks like it was completely uprooted in the storm. And we've had other birches tip over. In particular, you may notice that this one has a pretty pronounced arcing to it, very pronounced bend. But I think what happened is that a huge pine branch came down when this was already loaded with snow and probably just pushed it right past its breaking point. So you can see it's just the whole thing came up, big disturbance, but a nice little protected pocket for amphibians, I hope. Maybe some turtles, we'll see. That is, if these jerk ducks, wherever she just went off to, don't come down and harassing them too often. But to take advantage of that little pocket of sunlight, I have also stuck in a cutting from one of our neighbor's willows. And we'll talk about that in another video, probably soon. Since we're over here, oh look, here's another one that I stuck. Yeah, nice wet feet. Went in pretty easy after the rains. But we'll get down here and you can see some of these elders that I had planted last year have successfully overwintered, or at least some of them. That one is not looking so hot, so good. And these should all come up pretty nicely. I'm not planning on moving them. I'm just planning on taking some cuttings from them at the end of this season to further propagate out. But we'll see if we can get some fruit dropped from them and see what comes out. It's really just this part and parcel of trying to get things to just kind of grow on their own and participate with the local fauna so that they can help us in building this ecosystem further. We have some more things down. This definitely came off recently. It kind of looks like the top, probably, of this one. And that is precarious. But I was also thinking, I have a few kind of open spaces in here. It follows a lot of general forest management plan advice for the region. If I were to come in and remove more of the beeches, and I'd kind of almost want to take out a few of them and maybe build like a little willow structure back here. I feel like there are a handful of spaces that you can see in this daylight where something like that might be doable. Maybe on this side of that log that's down, in the little clearing semicircle in here, maybe just on the other side of that log where that pocket is, or potentially if I can get some help and get this cleared up, or at least even without the help, get all of this cleared up. Look at that. That's just, yep. So if I can get this cleared up, this might not be a bad space for it either. Although I would be preferring if some of these were also maybe out. So that'll be something to consider. But let's turn around. Let's keep walking. Some of these look like they've just fallen hither and thither, and I know there had been questions in the past wondering why some of our logs are just laid out either with contour or on contour or perpendicular to slope, parallel with slope. We don't always put things, up against grade to be slowing water. Sometimes they're just too heavy, and I think that perfectly organized forest gardens are boring. I think that's an acceptable way to phrase it. It's not that they aren't great, and it's not that I'm not happy that people are doing them. I just aesthetically a well organized everything on contour forest garden feels managed. And if I was going to philosophize about, oh look, another one. Let's see where that came from. That came from up there. See it? That fresh white wood. If it was an older wound, you'd see gray or you'd see rot. The gray really is the color that the pines turn once they've aged. If I pan down just a little bit, you can see if it were older, it would look like this one does, but it's not. So we have a ton of biomass to get through, and a ton of things to get rid of. But luckily, this bad Larry fell just to the side of our blueberry patch. And so this is the wild high bush blueberry patch. You can see we've tossed a few of the wood chips that I had brought down around them just to be a little extra calcium and phosphorus and those trace elements that the wood chips contain so that they'll break down pretty well. And I'd be lying. We've also kind of encouraged the ducks and the wildlife to poke around in here, but we've got some nice big buds forming. I tend not to do a whole lot of trimming or actual management on these. It's not really what they're here for. These are wildlife service plants and pollination support for me. I think this year will be the year that we bring a few more cultivar varieties down just to place around the pond. But for now, I'm just happy to see this little patch of them doing pretty well, and we'll try to add some more. Looks like this one got knocked over. Let's see if we can free it. Oh no, it's sad. But maybe it knocking over will spur up new growth. It won't be a loss. It'll just be a succession. All right, that's what we're all looking for. It's just the successional aspect in our forests. Some of the walking onions that I had brought down, they seem to be doing great. I think it's just going to be fun to have little pockets of onions here and there. The flowers will certainly make some of the pollinators happy. Here's another little tree that got just pulled over by the weight of all the snow. So we'll cut that back too. That'll be another one to trim back. In other news, we had stuck some raspberries and some other canes down in this section, but be real with you, at the moment, I don't see them. Oh, no, did I feel it? Nope. Doesn't feel like one of mine. It's okay. If it survived, it'll come up. Now that's what things do back here. They might not take off in the first couple of years. Some of the things that we've installed back here have just failed miserably. But we keep just kind of plugging away and planting things out when we have a flush of growth that we can devote to this. And it's partly as a test to see what spaces are able and available to support some of the other higher value crops that we're looking to plant back here. And so, just for an example back here, you may recall from an earlier video when we had some spoiled sunchokes, we had placed a few shrubs in this garden and some of the sunchokes as well. And I can see in here this little aronia is perking up, looking very happy. We have what looks to be a small oak right next to it. And I'm very pleased. I can't remember for the life of me if I had stuck something else with this aronia, but either way, we are seeing signs that the successional aspect of this, we'll call it midlife range forested space, is capable of supporting new flushes of growth, and we seem to be pushing the limits of its stem exclusion period through some of the disturbances that we're creating, some of the disturbances that nature is creating. And it makes it so that, particularly in the early season, it's just very easy for the lower level life forms to capture that energy and start pumping it for themselves and for their soil community. So I think it's neat. I guess we'll come up this way since we came down the other way. We have a little bit more of a berm built out back here. It's not really a walking trail. It doesn't really connect. This is more just a little pocket, and the bit right here is a little steep. And so we just created this little extra space for catchment. You can see that we've had some things kind of driven against it by the precipitation, and it's just doing the work. If it overflows too heavily, it'll come through here and then back down into the rest of things, like this little astilbe here. Or not astilbe, spirea. So, stairs are still holding up very well. It seems, and I had been a little bit worried when I first started these, that it was going to just rot too quickly, but there's really not a whole lot of it. There's some on the undersides of the bark, and there have definitely been colonization, but it's pretty hard, and anywhere that I have already scraped off the bark has become very, very hard. It's dried out, it's cured, and it's not rotting at the same extent that it would have otherwise been. So it seems that they're holding up pretty well. I haven't had too much soil leakage from them, so I'm feeling pretty good about them. I also came through and leveled out this space here a little bit. Some of the trees that had come down in an earlier storm made it a little easier to define the pathway that I have here. You can see it kind of forks up there, or you can go down that way. And this just makes it a little bit easier to deposit things in here and to plant things and to bring loads of material back here. And so one of the things we did, we put back here were some thymes. So you can never have enough time to get everything done. So we have it grown in a whole bunch of places. I know. We told jokes yesterday, or 2 days ago, whenever this video comes live. Still not a whole lot of movement in this propagation space that I am hoping for, but my notes say that a whole bunch of this was seeded out to a couple of viburnum varieties. And so it's possible that they've had the requisite amount of time to start going. They need a cool, and then a warm, and then a cool, and then on the second warm, they'll generally sprout, is what some of my books have told me. And in keeping with that, we have a few of the 9-barks, a blackberry cutting, another lilac for Nicole, and then some more 9-barks, in addition to some cuttings from one of the purple flowering raspberries. Right there. And another one right next to it. So I'm hoping that this will turn out well. I think there's that little bit more sunlight back there. I mean, even just standing back here, I know it's early in the season, but that's considerably more sun access than I recall being there in past years. So it's possible we're going to see a whole flush of growth from things I had forgotten about this year, and maybe we'll get a chance to catalog them before the deer eat them, and that'll be pretty cool. So I have to get back to doing more things. I really ought to go back the way I came so that I can keep working on that log, start breaking it down. There are just so many projects to keep going, so I think this is where we're going to cut it. So, until next time, thanks for watching. Happy planting.